Hi there, it's Rachel Gregg and welcome to the Darkroom Door YouTube channel. In this video I'm creating a card using a watercolour stamping technique with the Tall Flowers stamp set. This stamp set has 4 different flowers that have long stems and quite a lot of detail in the petals, and if you wanted to keep that detail in the flowers you would stamp with an archival or another type of ink pad that cannot be blended out with water. But for this card I want to do the opposite. I want to create a watercolour effect where it looks like I've painted these flowers using watercolours. And these tall flower stamps work beautifully with that technique. So to do this, I need to use some water-based inks such as Distress inks, or for this one I'm actually using the Make Art Blendable inks by Wendy Vecchi. So the colours I'm using are Sunflower, Poppy and Red Geranium, and then I'm using the Fern Green for the stems. I like to use 2 or 3 colours for the petals just to give it a multicoloured look. And to start with, I ink up the entire flower using the lightest colour of ink, so all the petals are covered in ink. And then I lightly tap in a few places with the middle colour, in this case that's the Poppy ink pad. And then I tap on some of the Red Geranium, only just in a few areas just around the petals, just so you can see the other 2 lighter colours shine through as well. And then adding the Fern Green to the stem, and now the stamp is fully inked up. And to create the watercolour look, I need to spritz the water onto the stamp, and you only need to do a light spritz as you just need enough just to blend those inks together. And then I'm stamping onto Ranger watercolour cardstock, which has a beautiful texture to it, and as you can see when you lift off that stamping it turns out like a beautiful watercolour flower. So I'm just going ahead and choosing some of the other flowers from the stamp set, and just to make it look like a garden. So what I'm doing for this card is I'm just trying to create like a little garden of flowers just on this little card panel. And because this stamp set has a few different types of flowers or a few different shapes of flowers, it will just turn out really nicely together. So sometimes when you're doing the stamping you may not have added enough water in places and the ink hasn't blended out exactly where you'd like it to. So you can just get a water brush and just pick up some of that ink and then just blend it out with the flower if you'd like to, just to colour in that flower a little bit more. And now what I'm doing is just using the little skinny flower. This is just a nice little bloom here, just using all those same ink pads. And then just to vary it up a bit, I'm going to do one where I just use the sunflower. So I'm not going to add any of the other colours onto it. I'm just going to use the one ink colour for the petals and then using that Fern Green again for the stems. And you can see there how just those different colours, it just makes it look like different flowers. And you can mix and match with your inks. You might choose to do more of that lighter colour and a little bit of the others. You might choose to do one flower where it's darker with the Red Geranium and just lightly with some of the other colours. It just depends on what you're looking for, and it's also really fun to experiment with all the different ink colours that you've got. So there's my finished panel, and I'm just going to set that aside to dry. And now I want to use some of the sentiments that are in this stamp set. So in this stamp set it has lots of vertical sentiments, and this one here I'm using the Happy Birthday sentiment, and I'll be placing this piece on the left hand side of the card, and it just gives it a fun different design. So to make my card I'm folding a piece of craft cardstock, and I'm making a A6 card front, so that is 6 inches by 4 inches or 10 centimeters by 15 centimeters. And I'm going to be mounting up my stamped panel just on some dark green cardstock, and I want to make everything really textural. So I'm using a paper distresser. This is the Tim Holtz Tonic paper distresser. The one that I've got here is the red and grey one, but it does now come in a black and grey. So this is a really fun little tool where you just put the paper inside the little notches and then rub along the cardstock, and it'll give that nice furry edge to the card. And the best way that I find is to avoid ripping the card is to start from the middle of the cardstock and then work your way to the edge, rather than starting from the edge and working your way into the centre of the cardstock. So now I'm just adding some adhesive to all of my panels, and I'll be sticking on this watercolour card piece to the dark green, and then now my sentiment here on the left hand side. And then now I want to add a little bit more texture, and I'll be using some twine. So I'm just going to wrap around the bottom here and create like a really nice bow at the front. And I've added on some adhesive to the back of this panel. So it just makes it easier to like keep the twine in place when I'm actually wrapping it around, because I can press it then onto the back and then it's not going to move. So once I get it in place, that's ready to sit there. And then at the front here, just tying it in a knot and then tying it into a bow. There's a couple of different ways that you can do this. You could actually just tie it into a knot and then add the bow separate. Just do it however it suits you. Because that twine is a little bit higher than the rest of the card, I'm now just adding some foam adhesive to the back so it lifts off the back of the card and adheres down better to the card front. And then once you've stuck your little panel here onto the craft card base, it's now complete. So I hope this has given you some ideas on how you can use your flower stamps with some water-based inks to create a beautiful watercolor effect. Thanks so much for watching.